Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Questioning a better way, one gracefully disruptive conversation at a time.
Welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. I'm excited to be here with you today. As always, we've got a really exciting conversation. If you listen to Turmeric and Tequila, you know I love human behavior, all things health and wellness, and then I love getting into the minutia of why we do the things we do and how we can pay more attention to that. So we're going to talk about social engineering today. And we're going to get into the details. If you don't know what that is, don't worry. We're going to break it down. But this is a really fascinating concept, and we have one of the leaders in the game. Before we jump into that, I want to give a special thank you and shout out to our sponsors, Lux Neuro, offering neurofeedback and counseling where your heart and mind align. For more information about what neurofeedback can do for you, listen to the neurofeedback stories of transformation in the middle of this podcast. Neurofeedback effectively treats everything from insomnia, anxiety, depression, trauma, ADHD, and much more. Optimize your brain. Special shout out to Declan James Watches. They are local, veteran owned out here in Colorado, with 10% kicking back to the Navy SEAL Foundation. And last but not least, our very own Colorado Clownfish Swim School, where swim lessons and water safety training for all ages are the priority. And the belief system, they believe in the life skills through sports. So come waterproof yourself and your family today. Chris Hadnagy, welcome to Turmeric and Tequila. Let's go.
Thank you. Really, really great to be here.
Yes, we're going to unpack a lot. So Chris has a super interesting background. You know, we're going to unpack the human behind the mission as we do on TNT, but he's a professional social engineer, and he has helped create the industry. He's the author of 5 books, and he's got a nonprofit. He's going to be speaking at some conferences and all kinds of stuff. Chris, welcome to TNT. Tell us about the young version of Chris before we get into all the professional side.
Oh, no. Oh, boy. So my wife has this nice joke. You ever see that old TV show called The Pretender? This guy who would he'd help solve crimes, but he would like go and get a job, but he was a super genius and he would just have a million careers. Like he'd go read a book and then he knew how to do anything. She said, that's me, but without being the genius. Right. So
I was going to say casual, keeping it humble early, the super genius. Okay.
But so I've done everything. I mean, there was a point in my career, I was a vice landlord for an apartment complex. I made surfboards. I was a chef for a few years. I was a negotiator for stainless steel in India and China, an IT guy, a computer programmer. I did window washing. I was a mason for a very short period of time, floor cleaner. I mean, it just goes on and on. It would be like I got bored really, really quickly at jobs. So I would go and I would just say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this thing. And I'd do it for a year or so. And they'd be like, really don't like this. And I'd go do something else. And that kind of led me to where I am today, because I ended up finding, the career that I'm in, probably because of all the things I've done.
I was going to say, that sounds like the perfect prep for what this is. We're mission-driven, intentional humans. And if you listen to the show, anyone, I talk about this all the time. My varsity people, we're going to figure it out. We're going to do more, whatever. But sometimes larger order is at play and we can't control it. So this sounds like the perfect resume for what you do now.
Yeah, it kind of is, because I have a lot of experience in a lot of things, so I can easily talk to people. And also when we get into it, we talk about pretexting. It makes it easier when you have experience in things to pretext when you're, breaking into a building.
Absolutely. We'll go with that. Breaking into a soul. Yeah. No, it's so real because, and there's one thing if you train and you chat GBT'd it or you Googled, how to be a good person. And it's really amazing if you authentically have like navigated all these different spaces around different humans and different diverse, so you authentically have this space to speak from. I don't care how smart, all the degrees and all. I'm here for our education. But the real experience to me is like the leader in the game.
And I think that's a good point, So it's to me, EQ is way more important than how smart you are, right?
Yes.
Because you can have someone who maybe not so book smart or academically smart, but they're the kindest person on earth, and you want to hang out with that person, not just because of how much they know, but because of how they treat you.
Hey, absolutely. And then that's I don't love putting this term on it, but that's an influence. That's an inspirer. That's someone that you're listening to, and their voice and opinion will have impact on your decisions and or choices, etc.
I agree.
Okay, so let's jump in. I'm super fascinated about this. Give us like a very watered down version of what social engineering is, and like how did you even get involved in this community or help create it?
Okay, so I have a very broad definition, which is any act that influences a person to take an action that may or may not be in their best interest. as I explain more, I think it will make more sense, but I use a broad definition because of the story that how we'll get there. So the career I finally found was writing exploits. So like software, like malware and things like that, but for the good guys. I was never one of the bad guys. And I realized during doing this, doing jobs, we get hired by companies to kind of break into their network and test their network. I realized that my brain didn't work with coding, but it worked with people. So I was reading these books from people like Kevin Mitnick, who was a very famous social engineer who went to prison because he stole stuff from the FBI. Frank Abagnale, who was the Catch Me If You Can. Victor Lustwig, he was a famous con man who sold the Brooklyn Bridge and the Eiffel Tower a number of times. All these people. And I said, I wonder if we can use these skills for the good and not do it illegally or maliciously. So I started, when we would get these tests or these audits, I would ask people, can I send a phishing email or can I make a phone call? And they would say yes. And I was reading all these books you can see behind me on influence and persuasion and nonverbals and body language and all these different things. And I'd write down, okay, I tried this principle of influence from Cialdini and it worked. And then over 10, 11 months, I built a framework. And I thought it was just a little project I did for myself. And the guy I was working for at the time, he said, this is amazing. You got to put this online. So I did. I bought social-engineer.org. This is 2008. And I put it online. And I was like, what the heck? Like it was blowing up. And I got a call in 2009 from Kevin Mitnick's publisher, asked me to write a book. And I was like, no, I am not an author. Like I'm a nobody. Like nobody wants to read anything I wrote. So she convinced me to do it. And I did. And that came out in 2010. And that was my first book on the topic. So I use the broad definition because over the last 14 years of doing this as a career and running a company that does this, I realized that the same skills those con men use, they use it for the wrong purpose. We can use those same exact things everyday life to communicate and navigate emotions and to build rapport with people. And you just don't do it to harm somebody or do it for selfish gain. And it's the same exact skills, though.
Mm-hmm. That's okay. We got a lot. I cannot believe we've not crossed paths sooner. So my quick, long, and short is long-time marketing, branding, long-time athlete. The more social media started to take off, I was coaching my young women in lacrosse, and I'm like, oh my God, their reality is coming through this. And I'm in health and wellness, the sexiest, biggest lying industry out there. And I always operated with a moral heart, and I was in front of kids. So we worked with strategic partnerships that I genuinely believed in. And, as a quote unquote influencer now, we're very intentional who we align with. And there were so many smoke and mirrors and people I was working with that were on the cover of these health magazines, and I knew they had disordered eating. I'm like, I can't be in the mix of this. But on the flip side, if I can talk about what's really going on in the right way, like you're saying, the exact same skill set, promotional attitude, strategy can be applied with moral conscience. And that's why, quite literally, Turmeric and Tequila started as this juxtaposition of seemingly opposing things can harmoniously coexist. So it's a very lighthearted target at anti-inflammatory, inflammatory, we're here to balance, but really it's about just disrupting the game in the best way. And all those people you mentioned, they're quote unquote bad guys, but these are geniuses. They get it and they made the system better and work for them. So we, again, can do that exact same thing. So this is fascinating. After you did all those incredible, different jobs and career avenues, when did the light flick on where you started to see through lines in each thing that you did because of social engineering or because you're understanding it?
So part of the job, which I realized was so important, it kind of fits everything you just said, was since I'm not the bad guy, my goal with a client is to have the employees open for training, right? So like if you came to me and said, hey, Chris, I want to learn how to fight. Can you show me how to fight? And I go, sure. And I punch you in the nose right away. You're like, that sucked. Like, that doesn't feel good. Why'd you do that? I embarrassed you. I hurt you. You don't really trust me anymore. So I said, okay, so I make sure that I have to use an ethical line with all of our pretexts so that when we're testing somebody, we're not using fear. We're not using anger. We're not using lust. We're not using things that afterward the person's going to feel bad about having fallen for that. We need them to feel better for having met us. So that's kind of like was our mantra. So as I started thinking of pretext, like, we do get paid to break in the banks, to get paid, into other places. I'm thinking, how do I enter this in the front door, go right past security, and no one's going to notice me? And that's where all these other jobs came in. Like I was a window washer for a while. So you grab a bucket and the squeegee and you walk in and like you're cleaning the windows and security just ignores you. Or you're the pest control guy and you walk in with a sprayer and a clipboard and security's more likely to just let you right through. So having all those jobs helped me to think of pretext that wouldn't elicit fear, that would be normal for someone. So that way they would, afterwards, when they found out it was a test, they didn't feel abused and used, but they felt like, oh, wow, that was kind of cool. How do we stop you, kind of thing.
That's incredible. Man, so that's such a switch. And I'm so curious because I always have my guard up because I understand what influencer means and it's got such a dirty connotation. And someone or a coach, anyone that's a point of leadership that influences your decision, whether you know it or not, to do something. And that's really great. Like, you think about the influencers in your life in a positive way, your coaches, your parents, what have you. So it's shifting that narrative. How, like, when I read social engineer, even a part of me is a little weary, like, oh man, is he going to climb inside my brain? And all of a sudden I'm buying, Pepsi, Coke, and I've never done that before. Like,
Right.
How do you initially, with the pretext, facilitate that open-mindedness to even be okay with social engineering?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I hire new people, I guarantee, like, I have this young woman that works for me. She's amazing. She was a sign language interpreter.
Okay.
But when she came aboard, one of the things she does for me is phone phishing. And she would come to me and say, I feel so guilty. I feel horrible. I said, she would say to me, like, these people are getting duped. I'm getting their passwords, and I said, okay, let's try to make an analogy to help. You might go to the doctor and the doctor finds something wrong with you. And he does a test and he says, oh my, there's something there. Now he has to do something that he has to cut you open. He's got to take a part of you out. He's got to remove this thing or you might die. So he's not sitting there happy that he has to remove a body part or remove something from you, but he's happy that he gets to fix you. So I said, the way we frame our job, because we know no one's getting fired for what we do, because that's one of our rules. We know they're going to get educated and we know we're going to make them better for their families, friends, their kids. So if you frame it that way, you say, okay, I can do this job as long as I don't step over that ethical line. And I say that a lot because a lot of people in my industry don't follow that rule and they don't have a problem stepping over the ethical line. And it gives us a bad name. It's kind of like why people like you hear that and go, oh my gosh, is he going to make me do things I don't want to do? Is because it does happen. It does happen. But if you have the morals and ethics, you realize that this is a tool. It's a tool that can be used, and if it's used in the right way, it can be really powerful and it can be life-changing.
There you go. That moral conscious and that the way you're pursuing it, I think, is the key piece. And before we got on the mic, quite literally, we were talking about how important or how cool podcasting is as a tool, because it's this incredible platform where you can have, 15 to 3 hours of conversation and people are engaging. Even the science and the numbers behind that are pretty incredible, how our young people are paying attention for 2 to 8 seconds on socials, but then podcasting, they're listening for 15 minutes to 3 hours. So it's a really cool thing. And my point of this thing is you need people like you coming on, explaining what it is, telling about it, like educating not only what you're doing for potential customers or the consumers, but for the greater good, so we can disrupt that narrative with actual legitimate intel. Tell me a little bit about like your ideal clientele, your ideal student, who's coming to find you to figure this out.
So for my corporation, for my company, that my day job, the perfect client is usually like a Fortune 500 or larger company. They're targeted by nation states. They're targeted by malicious hacker groups. They're targeted, and they're so large. Sometimes they're like little countries in themselves that they have a hard time. You don't know who the IT guy is if your company has 100,000 employees. So you need to really train those people, because they're the ones who, when they get a call, someone says they're from IT. How do I know that you're not? I don't know this guy. I don't know the guy named Paul, because we're not even in the same state. We're running a global company. So those companies are the best. But now when we talk about like the nonprofit side, we work with families, with kids, grandparents. Those are the things. So this kind of, the message is like all over. It depends on what avenue we're talking about. But it can, for my job, it's large companies or government agencies.
Okay. So, oh man, we could have a lot of good stories here. I already know. So if I'm out there and I'm like, I want to protect my family more, like what kind of individual reach out to you? Like, what are some of the goals they're looking for? Like more safety and security in their life, or they just want to know what their kid's doing? Like, who's that? What customer is that?
So the nonprofit that I run is called the Innocent Lives Foundation. And we've been around for 7.5 years, and our mission is to help law enforcement geolocate people who traffic children, who prey on children, who create child abuse material. We do this in a non-vigilante way. So when I say vigilante, you see these videos on Facebook of people who go out and make believe they're a 13-year-old girl. Then they get this guy to come to McDonald's and they beat him up or shame him. 82% of those cases don't work. They don't go to court. The guy walks. And now you have an angry predator who is now free, and he's going to hurt a kid. So we don't apply any of those methods. We use the skills like I'm talking about in my job to geolocate people on the dark web, to find out who they are in the real world, and then we hand them over to law enforcement in whatever country they're in. So when parents or caregivers or teenagers come to us, mainly it's because they've experienced a problem. Like right now in America, actually across the globe, but we'll talk about here in America, something called sextortion is a massive problem. Somebody's chatting up your kid, right? And they convince them to send a nude picture because they're telling them they're the same age. And this is what kids do, right? And I don't agree with that philosophy, but this is what they're told. This is what everyone does it, so it's okay. They get a nude picture or a video of them. They come out and they say, well, I'm not a kid. I'm a grown man. And now I'm going to send this to your dad. I'm going to send this to your school, or you're going to do things for me. And they're going to, sometimes it's money driven. They tell them, go to your parents' purse and grab a credit card. You're going to give me $25 a week, right? Sometimes it's sex driven, where they'll say you're going to get on camera and do stuff to yourself, and we're going to video record it and make money off of it. We have seen a rash of suicides across this country because children don't have a solid place to go to. They're embarrassed. They're humiliated. So when we talk from that side, we're trying to help parents and caregivers, teachers, instructors learn what the signs of a child being groomed is, and then take appropriate action to help them, right? To give them that safe place, that non-judgmental safe place that allows them to get past this and heal, as opposed to hurting themselves. It's a dark topic. I'm sorry, but
no, let's get in. This is what we're here for. I mean, like, it's all things. We got to cover, and it's got to be intentional. So I'm glad it went here. And in pop culture and society, where that hits home or not, you see Puff Daddy, you see R. Kelly, you see these situations. I think Colorado is one of the top sex trafficking situations. Like, and you would never know. Everyone's out running in jogging shoes, and it's like you don't really see it. What's in front of you, and these are real things that are happening in my world with this phone. Like I said, the inspiration for all this was we need to disrupt what's coming through this. But these kids are growing up in a different reality than you and I did. We didn't grow up with it. We didn't live in this. So we are learning the tools, but like them, they don't know either. And if you watch any of those documentaries, R. Kelly, what have, it's not a quick thing. It's a slow process. And like you're engineered to do this stuff. So it's kind of wild that this has become what it is. How do families find you? Is it like I think my kid's experiencing this, and then they talk to another family that knew you? Because this is still not a really prevalent thing. I'm speaking of like the solution. Like how does it get from A to B to find you guys?
So sadly, a lot of times the way it happens is either is word of mouth, or the child has sent pictures. They take it to the local police, and I'm not cutting them. A lot of them just aren't trained on how to deal with this. So they look at it and they go, well, what do you want us to do? She sent the pictures, willingly. They don't have the means or the methods to find who this person is on the other end of the phone. So they kind of almost shame the parents and send the kids away. And the father, mother's totally ticked off. They go on the internet, they start looking for, what can I do about this? And we write tons of articles on sextortion, on grooming. Okay. So they get to our website, and then they fill out a report, and then usually we meet with them and talk about what we can do. Sometimes people are just ahead of time searching the internet for, how do I talk to my kids about sexting? Right. And we have a whole section on that, like how to talk to them about that, because it's like what you said. I mean, when I grew up, there was no way for me to give a nude picture to anybody.
Yeah.
Because I'd have to take film to a store, and they'd process that, and they would see it, and then be telling my parents, and that'd get the crap beat out of me. Right. So there was no way to do it. So we didn't even think of it. It wasn't even a thought to give a nude picture to a girl, or have her give me one. That wasn't even something. When Polaroids came out, maybe somebody thought of that, but that was still risky.
Yeah,
that was very risky.
It's a lot of extra steps, like
and
really. Physical hard evidence. Like I mean, we always do that. Like, don't put it in writing, don't put it in the picture.
Yeah. So kids nowadays, they're in a whole different realm.
Yeah.
And we're seeing sexting starting sometimes as the age of 9 and 10.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is. Is there any sort of preventative measure you guys take? Obviously, of the nonprofit, but like education in schools or programs or like community health workers. Like, tell me about that.
So, depending on the age of the child, we have a lot of instructions on our site of how to monitor your kids' phones, right? I did that with my daughter when she got a phone when she was very young. And then as she got older and she, proved that she was very trustworthy, we lessened those restrictions. And then when she was, just about 17, 18, we just removed them all, right? And now it's up to her to navigate the world. And we told her, this was not to spy on you. This was to save you from the bad guys that you might not recognize, right? So that was the motive behind it. So you can monitor your kids' phones, but also I find that some of the easiest things that parents don't do is having an open conversation with your kids about it. Like they need to know, okay, I screwed up. I sent something. I need to go
Mhm.
tell mom and dad. And the first things out of your mouth aren't going to be, how stupid are you? They
Mhm.
need to know that's not going to happen. They need to feel that they can come to you, they can tell you they screwed up, and you just want to work with them. You want to help them. You're their advocate, not their adversary. Parents who do that, we find that even if the kid screws up a little, that they're more likely to get the help right away. And we have serious conversations with schools and tell them, look, you might think this is all fun,
Yeah.
but here's the thing. Once those pictures are out there, literally once they have left your possession, they no longer can ever be deleted. If that person you sent it to put it on one website, it is now cached on that website forever. That website owns it. If they shared it with someone else, exponentially that goes out. You don't get those pictures removed. So you have to really think long and hard. And when you take these pictures and videos, this might be something that haunts you when you're an adult and you're going for a job in a bank or something. And now these pictures come back out. And sadly, I work with a lot of right now, mostly young women that are in their 20s that want these pictures to get removed. And we're working, trying to see if we can do that. A lot of times it's next to impossible to get them all removed.
Oh, man. I mean, I'm a big on life skills through sports, and being a female athlete, that always kept me on the straight and narrow, and I always had a mission that was larger than myself, and I had something that there was guardrails in my life. So I'm such an advocate
Mm.
for all our young people in general, particularly our young girls, of self-worth,
Yeah.
knowing that you're valuable, caring about what your future is, knowing like your mind and your body, protecting that. And I know the more we can have that conversation, the better. And there's absolutely still a huge space for this very specific conversation early
Very.
on of what you need to do and how. And this is also why I love podcasting. If you're a parent, you're not comfortable, you can just plug this conversation and be like, let's listen to this together. Or let's do this
Yeah.
if you don't know what to say, because life gets serious really, really early and really, really fast. And then it can
Yeah.
really, really impact your future in the worst way. And you don't know what the hell you're doing at 20 years old / 0 years old. Like you
Yeah. Seriously.
there's
I mean,
no
really.
you really don't.
And
It's a hard space.
another big problem today is pornography.
Yeah.
It teaches women that they're not really worth anything, that they're only there for pleasure. It teaches men an unrealistic view of sex and sexual relations. It teaches an unrealistic review of intimacy, and it makes women objects. So when they start, and we're seeing now reports come in that children as young as 7 and 8 are being introduced to pornography. So when you're raised this way, and at school, kids are showing it to you, what you just said, young women not having self-worth, is
Yeah.
because if you're getting fed this garbage, you're being told that's your worth.
Yep.
That's all you're worth to society and to men. OnlyFans has turned or average everyday people into strippers online. It's become, in my mind, a pandemic that teaches kids at very young ages, that sexualizes them and sexualizes their behavior. And parents talking about that is really important. Parents talking about the dangers of looking at pornography, that how it can affect your viewpoint of yourself and real sexual relations, and all those kinds of things those kind of parents can really save their kids from a lot of heartache.
Absolutely. I mean, pornography is the marketing and branding of sex, and it's just
Yeah.
like if you watch someone run a marathon, you don't see all the training days.
Mm.
It's this, very the thing that hurts my heart is this idea of instant gratification, whatever it
Yeah.
is, whether that's sexually or financially or in a partnership, like this not choosing to take the harder path or wait for something you work for or do the work in the long game, like this constant instant gratification and this ability for convenience really scares me more than anything,
Yeah.
because you just don't learn how to wait, and then that impacts your physical health, your mental health, the whole thing. I'm very curious for you, how do you exist in this space and with your own mental health of constantly existing alongside this dark reality that is true? How do you manage your own mental health?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I've had a therapist since I was young, 15. But one of the things I did when I started ILF, Innocent Lives, is I realized that therapy couldn't be optional. So,
Yeah.
one of our first employees that we hired was a therapist, and we mandate, if you volunteer for our organization, you have to see her once a month. You have to. Now, most people don't need to be told; they want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's you have to have a safe place, and then you also have to balance. For me, spend time with my family. Spending time away from the computer. Those things are important. To make sure that you have a balanced time. I'm very much into working out. I went during COVID. I went into a massive health health. I tell you, I weighed 350 pounds at the start of
Okay.
COVID. And
Okay.
I was sure I was gonna die of a heart attack. I mean, I couldn't walk upstairs without being out of breath. And all of a sudden, I'm not traveling anymore for work because COVID came.
Yeah.
And now I'm sitting at my desk, just getting bigger and bigger. And I'm like, what am I doing? So I literally hired a trainer over the internet, and he goes, "Here's what we're going to start: walking. That's it. You're going to do 10,000 steps a day." So I started doing that, and then after like a month, I was losing weight. I couldn't believe it. And I said, well, I want to work out. And I had like a couple kettlebells and a bench, and that's it. So he gave me a very simple 15, 20-minute routine. All of a sudden, I was losing weight and unbelievable. And I said, okay, give me 3 or 4 workouts a week and at least an hour. And then I built a gym on my porch. And now I've been doing this now for 2.5 years, and I've lost 130 pounds.
Good for
Yeah.
you, man. And the mental health has to be night and day. Just the attitude, the energy, like
Night and day.
best drug in the world, fitness.
It is. And when if I look at the pictures of me 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and I'm like, holy mackerel, I look old. I look old there. Like I look younger now than I do then, and I feel much better. So I ran my first 5K ever in my life, so it's like, yeah, so that it was a big deal. So I think, your question is, I spend a lot of time with working out and self-care that way, a lot of time with my family, and I try to focus on the results of the mission, not necessarily the statistics all the time, because the results are when we get one of these guys arrested and apprehended, especially people on the dark web, that can represent dozens of children that they could have harmed over their career as a pedophile. So when we stop one of them, that can be 12, 50, 100 kids that now won't ever have to go through that by his hands. So that I focus on that, and I'm like, this just makes me feel great.
Hell yeah, dude, that's awesome. This is a really random fact, but I'm right by Sloan's Lake, and Dog the Bounty Hunter, his office used to be right there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, dude. There's a whole thing there.
That's great.
But yes, I would always combine like, damn. But also like if you go out there, 3 younger brothers, 2 in military, if you're going out there and you're getting the bad guys, I get it. I think particularly for my guys out here that, do the G.I. Joe type thing. I get it. And I see it, and it's in no disrespect, but it's a big deal. And you need your people that are truly willing to sacrifice a piece of their life. I'm so glad you're good about it. But to exist in that space, I don't care how good you are about your mental health, there is a sacrifice to it.
Oh, there is.
I mean, I'll say I have myself and every other human out there that's had some assistance in some capacity from our law enforcement, our military, our people of service. Thank you, because there's always sacrifice in that game. So I hope that people listening understand that people that choose the path that you do have this space of gratitude, because you got to see some really terrible stuff, and you got to work with people it's hard to believe that they even exist.
Yeah.
And where they're at.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
I will say yes to that. There are some times where I'm reading things and you think, well, it can't get any worse than this. And then a month later, you're like, oh my gosh, it got worse, and COVID really took a toll on this, because if you think about it, not only did the amount of pornography that got produced increase, you would think it would decrease because we couldn't get together, but online pornography became such a huge thing. But all the child predators were at home, and so were the children. So you have this extreme supply demand thing going on, and we saw a massive spike in the amount of reported child sex abuse material that was reported to the government agencies. So it became one of these things where you're like, wow, it's shocking, and you would think eventually you wouldn't be shocked anymore. But I'm glad I still get shocked, because I don't want it to ever become complacent. But you just think, how much worse can people possibly get? Like, really?
Yeah. It's a great big world out there. And, as a podcaster, every human I sit down with has a story, and you're like, oh, I had no idea. Like, I didn't know this was like, people all have their own path. And there's also just a lot of hurt in the world. There's a lot of really hurt people that come from really awful things, and the cycle repeats. So we need the good humans doing the good things. How much of your work is this side of the things? And then is it like, anti-cyber attacks, or like, are you working with the government to, I don't know what you can say, the government to do work around like terrorist attacks, and like how deep does this go, or do you cover everything?
So before I started ILF, I did do some terrorist hunting. It was because ISIS was using Twitter as a hunting base for disgruntled Americans. So we were able to use some of the skills I have to like uncover some of those cells. They were very smart in the way they did it. So it was something that we can help with. But I would say if I had to split it up right now, most of my day job is the social engineering part. And I do work with government agencies. I got invited, believe it or not, to the Pentagon twice to debrief on this. That's like crazy. So I've been able to do a lot of really interesting speeches and talks and work with the government and agencies and things like that. And then my passion project is the ILF. So I do that as much as I can.
Yeah.
And that just kind of fills in the whatever time I can fill in with that. So,
I hear that.
but I don't do much else besides those two things from a work perspective. I
Okay.
try to keep some balance with that too, but it's not so easy.
Well, I mean, government contracts can be pretty attractive. I don't know how far that goes.
Yeah.
But again, you're dealing with stuff you didn't maybe want to see or know. And I don't know. It's very interesting. I'm curious to see how this goes. Do you get like coaches or leaders that are like, I want to influence or inspire my team to do X, where it's the total other
Yeah.
side? Okay.
Yeah.
Tell
No,
me a
we
little bit
do.
about
So
that.
yeah, that's kind of cool. So we get calls for people because my fifth book, the one I just wrote, wasn't about how to do social engineering. It was about all the things that I learned over the last 15 years and how I use this to be a better parent, a better boss, a better
Yes.
whatever. So I kind of reused all of these stories about breaking into buildings and nuclear facilities and stuff like that, and then said, well, here's what I learned, and here's how I can apply it to dealing with my daughter, right? Just showing a different skill set. So because of that book, I would get calls from companies that would say, hey, can you come and just don't even talk about security, talk about elicitation, talk about pretexting, talk about, I was just in Kazakhstan, believe it or not, a place I never thought I would want to go, but I got invited by this group that does Nobel laureates. They come in and give speeches and trainings, and they invited me to come give a whole workshop on elicitation and nonverbals, using them in every day. So we get calls for those kinds of things. Sometimes you get calls even from just like one person who says, I want coaching in leadership. I want coaching in nonverbals. I want coaching and being better at this stuff. I had a guy come to one of my classes because he said he wanted to be a better dad. I'm like, that is the first time I ever heard that in my life,
Oh, yeah.
but because it's a social engineering class, but he was using all the communication skills to work out things with his daughter. It's like, okay.
I say all the time, again, coach for over 25 years, athletic, human, business. I always tell my parents, and I don't have kids, and I'm like, they are your first influencer, like, or
Yeah.
you're their first influencer. Like, they are paying attention, even if they're not listening or throwing a shoe at the door because they're pissed or whatever. They're still
Right.
drinking in your behavior. Just how we become our parents, like it's
Yes.
happening. So, like, believe in what you're saying because they're about to be you at some point.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
we'll do all the therapy to avoid it, but it's still there, and
Yeah.
your position is of value, and it's influential. So, I think that's where I would love to see this go. Like, definitely get on the front lines and make this world a better place, and get to our intentional people, our leaders that want to be leaders, and that's where the butterfly effect helps in the positive way.
Yes.
And I believe in that. That's where my influencers are. I'm like, wear the title, do the thing. That's what it is. So give us an example of, I want to be a better parent. I'm taking a workshop. Like,
Okay.
what is your intro to social engineering? Because I'm curious on like how we get started and like what's the mindset walking into a room to learn about this.
Okay. So let's give a scenario.
Okay.
Let's say my daughter was out with a few of her friends. She has a curfew, 11 p.m. It's 11:30. I'm calling, texting. She's not answering. It's midnight. I'm calling, texting. She's not answering. I look at her location. She shut her location off. I'm now getting worried. Finally, it's like 12:45 in the morning, and she gets dropped off. Now, as that's happening, here's where social engineering comes in. I have two pretexts I can choose from. I could be angry dad that demands justice. I'm pissed off. You've made me nervous. You scared. Or I can be concerned dad. Are you okay? Right. So this is my first thing when I go break into a building. I got to choose, who am I? Am I pest control? Am I elevator guy? Am I fellow employee? Right. So I'm just choosing my pretext. So let's say I go with concerned dad. So now she comes in and I'm like, oh my gosh, Maya, I'm so glad you're okay. I was really worried about you. I've been texting and calling and you shut your location off. You know what's going to happen. Every parent knows they're going to roll their eyes. There's going to be some attitude. I don't want to talk about it. Okay, I can see you're upset and I know I'm upset, but we're going to have to talk about this, but maybe we can do it tomorrow morning since you look tired and I'm tired. I'm just glad you're safe. Right. And now what I've done is I gave her my pretext, concerned dad, and I never broke it. But I also gave an ultimatum. We're going to talk about it, but I can see you're tired. So there's no sense in beating it up tonight. You're like, are you okay? Yes. Okay. Now we go to bed. Next morning, I can't break that pretext. I can't be angry dad now. Right. Because I built rapport with that pretext. And now I got to be like, okay, let's sit and talk. Your curfew's 11. And I was really worried that something happened to you. You shut your location off. And, can you tell me what happened? And she's going to roll her eyes, say, look, Maya, here's the deal. Even if you did something that you think I'm going to be upset at, I would rather I'm the one driving you home if you drank something or took something, because then I know you're safe. So we can talk about that another time. But if that ever happens, I would rather I'm the one, you're sitting in my car if you're not feeling like yourself and you're not behind the wheel or you're not in the car of some stranger, because my whole goal is just to keep you safe. That's it. All of a sudden, you're going to see soften up. Right now, maybe we do have a conversation and talk about it. I'm kind of giving you like a real life scenario that happened. So,
Sure.
then we do talk about it, and at the end, it's like I can't break pretext. So she tells me something happened I didn't like. I can't break pretext. And now it's like, okay, this is how you continue that and you build that rapport. But it's learning how to control your emotions and nonverbals, learning how to use the right type of questioning, right? Because a question can be an interrogative question, or it can be out of concern. Right? I can say, I was so worried. Where were you? Or I can be like, I was really worried. Where were you? Right? They're the same exact words, but the tone of that whole sentence changes, and the feeling that you get when I ask it to you changes based on how I am. So if I can control all of that in myself, then we have a better chance at using these skills to build that conversation. Now, someone always asks, what if I can't control it? Then don't fake it, right? Because that's see-through. So if you can't control it, you simply have to say, listen, I feel myself getting really angry, and that's not the way I want to have this conversation. Is it okay if we take a break for 15 minutes so I can calm down? Right. And that shows that you want to talk about influencer.
Yeah.
You're influencing now how to have a real adult conversation. Do not let your emotions get the best of it. If anything, later on in life, she'll see that and she'll respect that. She'll be like, yeah, Dad always walked away when he was getting angry instead of saying something stupid. Now, let's say you do it. You don't do that. And you do say something stupid. You blow up off the handle. What do? Apologize. I mean, people say, I apologize to my kid. They're my kid. Yes, they're also human. And if you and I were sitting here and I said something rude to you, you would expect me to apologize. So if I flip off the handle and yell at my daughter and say, like, how stupid can you be? You could have been hurt, kidnapped, or something worse. Now I actually go and I should have never said that. That was terrible. I flew off the handle. I got angry. I let my emotions take control of it. And I said something that was completely mean and untrue. They'll respect the heck out of that because you had the guts to go and apologize. So there's like one example of how you can like run a conversation with all these skills that allow you to get to your objective. What is your objective? It is keep her safe, find out what happened, make sure that doesn't happen again. And you get to that objective, but you don't have to do it through like anger and being a bully.
I love it. What's the saying? Everything you learned in kindergarten. This is the stuff, not to simplify, because it's not simple. This is very complex. And communication, I don't know what the stat is, 80% is nonverbal, or what have you. Don't quote me there. But it's all these things we don't think that are intuitive, but then you have to go back to learn it. So it's like stuff we should know to be quote unquote good humans, but we don't intuitively know. So like this is wildly applicable to every facet of life.
Yeah, it's so I will attest that social media has done a disservice to us. We spend so much time looking down on our phones that we've lost that ability to look at someone's face and kind of connect with them. Also, I don't know if you read this. There was a study about during pandemic that they found that most people who use Zoom spend more time looking at themselves than they do looking at the person they're talking to. So I don't know about you, but in my Zoom, I have the setting where it says my self view is turned off.
Oh,
so I don't
cool.
see
I didn't
myself.
know you could do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
because right now, like, if you and I were in person talking, I can't see myself.
Yeah.
So I don't want to look at myself. I want to look at you because your head nods, your smiles, your body language is going to tell me if I'm doing something good or bad.
Yeah.
Right. But we lost that. And during pandemic, I'm a professor at a university and I have this rule that I do it remotely. Everyone's got to come on camera and I will be on camera. And my students will tell me none of the other professors make us do that. At the end of the semester, they're like, that was awesome. I'm so glad you made us do that. And they'll tell me all the other professors don't even come on camera themselves. They're just a little black square. Like, how can you teach? How can you influence? If you can't see the person, look at them.
Yeah.
They know that you're passionate about it, that you're there for them. That is such a huge piece of it. But I think we lost a lot of that during pandemic, and social media has really aided us in that siloing, looking down, not paying attention.
Oh, well, just the genuine energy exchange, I think, is soul fuel. You need that for your mental health, your physical health, to connect with people. Like when you can't do that and you're a little black square on the screen. I mean, thank God I was, I don't know, 40 something even then, because I wouldn't have been able to learn that way as a kid, sitting there looking at a black square or just sitting at my computer. Like I need the class and the interaction.
Oh man, I would have been dead.
Yeah.
I would have been failed out of school. I would have.
Yeah.
I really. It
Yeah.
would have
Well,
been
good news.
terrible.
We can still be podcasters without a degree, but
Yeah, that's true.
I did get a degree though, thankfully, because I cared about sports. But yeah, no, that's really wild. And I just love that how communication is so deeply overlooked and it's applicable to everything you do for your relationships, personally, professionally, how the world views you, what you care about.
Mhm.
And it's how these details can really shift a conversation or an experience so drastically that then you get into the realm of misunderstanding, and nobody wants to be misunderstood on either side. And I
Yeah.
think that's a whole piece of it in general. What keeps you, there's so many ways
Mm.
this could go, but what keeps you excited about social engineering? Like, where do you want to
Mm.
see this go?
So so if we look at human history, social engineering's always been around and it's the same, right? The scams, the grifters, there's always the same. But the technology and the medium at which it is applied changes constantly. Now we're in the era of AI. And I don't know if I should use the word excited. I mean, I'm excited, but I'm also really scared
Yeah.
because the ease of creating deep fakes, the ease of deep faking someone's voice or body, it costs nothing now, and pennies on the dollar, and even a novice can learn how to do it.
Mhm.
So I'm worried about that, but my excitement comes in being able to use AI to hopefully build defenses for these type of things, because without defenses, we're lost, And I'm not one of those guys who thinks like the Terminator is actually going to be real. I mean, AI learns from humans, so it becoming sentient does not make sense.
Yeah.
But a good example is, I think, when ChatGPT first came out, and we're talking 4 or 5, whatever, not the most recent ones, but it was like years ago, it became a misogynist and a racist within 4 hours, and they had to shut it off. And you look at it, you say, why? Why did that happen? How can a bot become that? Well, because the only things that trained that bot were white men. They had no women, no people of color, no diverse people. No training was being done by anything but white men. So the answers all got geared towards that, and then eventually the bot just siloed itself and it became a racist. So it's like, you look at that and say, I'm excited to see how much AI is being adopted.
Yeah.
We're training it using so many different kinds of people now. The things that it can be trained to do are going to hopefully create new jobs and take away menial jobs that we shouldn't be doing anymore. Give people some better lifestyles and things like that. We have to just get there. Right now, we're still at that point where people are using it to cheat life, to
Yeah.
write their papers and to do their homework. It's like we got to get to the point where people start seeing it as a really legitimate tool. And if you use it the right way, it can change the world.
Absolutely. I know. Well, I'm most excited about every day I see more and more kids shutting their phone off and just straight up
Really?
getting out of
Do
it.
you?
Yes. Not a ton, but yes. And I have parents that I train with. I'm a massive CrossFit advocate. So if you ever want to get into that, let me know. But I have
Wow.
conversations with them. They're very much my community. So we talk about all this stuff. Again, I'm a question asker. But they don't want it. They too much. Or they say, I'm taking this off. It impacted my mental health like a 12-year-old. I don't think I knew what mental health was at
Yeah.
20
Yeah.
something, let alone 12. And they're shutting it off. Or, and I'm not kidding, they're going to flip phones. Or some of my friends are going to flip phones where there's no social media. So it's a small
Wow.
percentage. Yeah, but I really do see kids wanting to get out and want nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
And I think, but I'm with you. There's the tools, like just like you have the breaking in and the negative, and then the flip side of
Yep.
that is the same strategy to good. So I'm here for both sides. It's just more the individual conversation of what works for you, and also be wise to the game. You need to be
Yeah.
a conscious consumer. There's personal responsibility in how you live, and there's resources out there, but you always got to take care of number one and know what you're doing. So I think that's just a wild space, but I'm with you. And I'm
Yeah.
curious to kind of keep track of your journey and see what's next and how you maneuver in some of these spaces. I hope that our leaders continue to reach out to you, because I do think that's the best defense to all the negative of our good people doing good things the right way. And that trickle down effect, I think is really, really awesome. Tell
Thank
us
you.
about any books, websites, where can we find you? Anything you want to talk about or share?
Well, you can go to social-engineer.com. That is my corporate website. InnocentLivesFoundation.org is for the Innocent Lives. And on there's links to everything, so you can get to my books. And LinkedIn's my most active social media. I don't really enjoy social media. But LinkedIn I find to be a really good way to connect with people. So I use that a lot. So if people connect with me there, I generally will chat with almost anybody, as long as the first thing you try to do is not sell me something or ask me to go to WhatsApp. Those people get deleted right away, right? So if that happens, I just go delete, block.
Yeah.
Don't want to talk to you. But those are probably the two best ways to connect with those websites and LinkedIn.
Okay. And I got two questions actually for you. Tell us about this conference, the Human Conference, Hubby.
Yeah,
I didn't know what it was. We're out here like a
yeah.
newbie. What is it?
It's okay. So Human Behavior Conference. So the year of COVID, so it was right before COVID came to this state, to Orlando. I had this idea of running a conference that was focused on trying to understand how humans make decisions. So not just social engineering, not security. Like I had Joe Navarro there talking about body language. I had R. Paul Wilson there talking about sleight of hand. I had Stephanie Paul there talking about dynamic storytelling. And we ran these little classes where people can come and join and learn these skills from the masters, from the people who have mastered their field. And then COVID happened. And it was an amazing conference, by the way. We had a few hundred people there. It was small,
yeah.
It was intimate, but it was just awesome. COVID happened, and I tried 1 year online, and it just wasn't the same. Trying to teach these human to human skills over the internet just didn't feel right. So I killed it off. 3 years passed, and or 2.5 years passed, and Joe came back to me, Joe Navarro. He says, "Let's do it again." I'm like, "Yeah, why aren't we doing it again?" So we made it real small. We had like 100 people. We rented this beautiful place over here, Rollins College, Rollins University, and we ran this one day version. We're going to bring it back next year for 2 days. And this year we focused on nonverbals, the art of and principles of influence, and then elicitation and rapport building. And it was just a full day. And people, I mean, at least the reviews we got, people fell in love with it. So next year we're going to add some more content, grow it out a little bit, and bring it back for 2 days.
Oh, I love it. Keep me 100% posted on all of that. I might have some
I will.
additional humans to share because that is for sure avenue. Influencer marketing always sounds like marketing and whatnot, but really it is about the human behavior and the power within.
Yeah.
Final question for you, and I'm very curious to hear you to say, what is success to you?
Oh, wow. I love this question. Can I tell a story?
You can do whatever you want, man. Yeah, let's
Okay.
go.
I had this company that wanted to buy my company, my company. It was a few years ago. And they came and they were offering me quite a bit of money personally. I mean, there was quite a few zeros on the end of it. And they promised no one would get fired, everyone was going to stay, keep their jobs. So I said, "Okay, well, let me ask you one question. Every year, this is of course pre-COVID, every year I taught a class in the UK, and I'd rent it. Oops, sorry, it's my dog. Hopefully it didn't come over to your
You're good.
podcast, did it?
You're good.
Okay.
I got 3, so it's part of the package
Okay.
here.
So every year we go to the UK. I train this class, and I rent a car, and I fly my 2 kids and my wife over, and we drive to Scotland, and we hike, and we drink whiskey, and we hang out with the locals, and we just loved it. It was something we loved to do. So then I'm gone for a month. Can I do that if I sign this paper? And he said, "Well, we'd have to talk about it." I went, "That's the wrong answer.
Yep.
That's the wrong answer." And I said, "Nope." And he added more zero, more numbers. And I went, "You're not hearing me, man. I mean, you think money is going to buy me. I don't care about that. I care about that month with my family, disconnected from the world. That's what I care about." So I walked away from that deal. And to this day, me and him still stay in contact. And he's like, "Yeah, you happy with that?" I said, "Yeah, I am, because I got to do these things with my family. And I would have worked for you for 5 years. I would have probably had millions of dollars saved in the bank, but what for? Maybe I'd have been divorced, or my kids would have hated me. And what is that? Who gives a crap if I have all the money in the world if I don't have that?" So to me, that's a long answer. Short answer to your question is success to me is doing the things you can to take care of your family and making sure you have the time to spend with them, because everyone's going to end at some point in this life.
Yeah.
And you don't want to look back and go, "Boy, I wish I spent more time with my kids. I wish I spent more time with my wife. I wish I had better conversations with my wife." Do it now. Do
Hell
it
yeah.
now.
Time
Yeah.
is a finite resource. That's so funny. Well, also, thank you. That was a beautiful answer. You just crushed dynamic storytelling, and the takeaway close demonstrated very well. So
Thank you.
multitask there. But I'm with you. It's funny that my successful humans, that answer, because I try and ask every single guest that same question. It's almost never about money, and this deep awareness of the lack of time that we really do have, and how valuable it is. And especially if you're spending your time towards a worthy cause, purpose is like a big piece of my mental health, because I'm not in pursuit or doing some sort of positive impact. Like, you're not useful. It's not going to make me happy. So that's great. But I'm excited. Go check this dude out and all that he's got going on. I really encourage you, if you're a leader, if you're a concerned parent, if you're a business owner, if you're a biohacker, maybe you want to learn what they're doing. I don't know. Go see what's going on, because again, I'm big on the being a conscious consumer, being an advocate for yourself, being the right leader. This is where it happens. Chris, do you have any final words, points of advice, quotes, any knowledge you want to drop on us before we check out?
Oh boy, there's always something to say, but no, I think you did a great job. I think this is a really nice podcast.
Well, thank you
I
very
love
much.
your energy. The positivity is really infectious, so that's good for your listeners. And just go do something kind today. Do something kind for someone. One
Amen.
act.
Thank you. Yeah, I received, and I could not agree more. I want to give on that note a little love to our sponsors. Thank you to Lux Neuro, Neurofeedback and Counseling. Neurofeedback wants to meet you. If you're ready to transform your life, visit them at luxneuro.com. Colorado Clownfish Swim School. They are swim lessons and water safety training for all ages. They believe in life skills through sports. So come waterproof your family today. All good local business doing good things. Chris, I appreciate your time and energy. We'll definitely keep track. If you're listening, go check out us wherever you get your podcast. The video will be on YouTube, and go check this guy out. We will see you soon in the new year. Cheers.
Thanks, Kristen.
Thank you for joining Turmeric and Tequila with your host, Kristen Olson. Tune in next time, and don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen.